Welcome to Optimize Your Success. I am Jack Scott, the Chief Operations Officer at the Mentor Project, and I'm excited to introduce your host and a mentor at the Mentor Project, Dr. Ruth Gotian. Dr. Gotian is an expert in the field of high performers. Each week, she uses a live panel filled with high performers to discuss different topics while posing challenging questions to each of the panelists. You are able to hear from each of these panelists about their challenges. You will learn how they overcame these challenges so they could excel and reach high achievement within their life. This is a podcast you don't want to miss. We're excited you're here with us today. Welcome to Optimizing Your Success.
Some of us don't always do is that they fear not trying more than they fear failing. If they have a challenge that they are up against, if there's something that they haven't tried before, not trying for them is not an option. They need to see if they can do it. And they think to themselves, really, what's the worst that'll happen? What is the worst that'll happen? So today we have our great extreme high achievers here once again, and really an eclectic group from an Olympic athlete to three physicians we have here. I mean, we really have a fantastic group here. So they're going to talk about some of the things that they have had to overcome in order to reach their success. Thank you for joining us. My name is Dr. Ruth Gotian. This is the Mentor Project's Optimizing Your Success. We are live now on all of the social media platforms, so tell us where you are from. And by the way, if you have questions for any of these great high achievers, just put it in the chat, and our amazing producer, Dr. Debbie Heiser, behind the scenes, will let us know, and they can answer them for you live. Also, the audio from this show, as it is done every single week, will be converted to a podcast, which will come out next Sunday on the Mentor Project's channel. So go check that out, subscribe, please leave us a rating and review, and let us know what especially you loved. So here we go. Here are this week's high achievers, starting with Dr. Bruce Wiley.
Hi, Ruth. Thanks again for having me on the show. I'm Bruce Wiley. I'm a writer, journalist, professor, and computer modeler. I cover health and healthcare for Forbes.
Thank you.
And I know Dr. Ruth Gotian.
That's your claim to fame?
Yes.
Janice Lintz.
I know Ruth too.
Lord.
So I am Janice Lintz. I'm CEO of Hearing Access and Innovations, a company that is dedicated to make the world accessible for people with hearing loss. And I'm also a writer, and I've traveled to 194 countries, territories, and unrecognized nations.
Thank you. And I just want to go back to Bruce. If you look at his Forbes column we were talking about before the show, no topic is off limits for him. So go check that out. And Janice, if you give her something to do, it will get done. She doesn't matter if she has to reach out to the Queen of England or the President of the United States to get it done. This is the one who has the strategic vision. She recently had an article last week in Medium that I really suggest that you guys check out.
Although I don't think I'd reach out to the Queen of England right now. She's a bit busy.
I think she's busy right now. So next on our high achievers list, Dr. Allison Escalante.
Perfect timing. My puppy just stopped barking.
I knew that.
Hi, I'm Dr. Allison Escalante. I am a pediatrician and, do lots of things just like everyone here. I teach students at the medical school at Rush. I am on a mission to see if we can do something about the parenting anxiety crisis. And I'm finally, I think, making headway with what will be my first book, Should Storm: Why Worried Parents Raise Worried Kids and What to Do About It. I'm a contributor to Forbes on the science of human performance, and I write for Psychology Today on all things stress and mental health related.
Thank you. So I think between the three of us, between Bruce, Allison, and myself, we cover three different areas for Forbes. So there's always something there to read. Now, our Olympian that we love having on this show, because talk about fear not trying more than you fear failing. I mean, if there's anyone who really exemplifies this, it is Devon Harris.
Yes, Devon Harris. And guess what? I know Ruth as well.
Oh, God.
I will not be left out. Three-time Olympian, original member of the Jamaican bobsled team. I don't write for Forbes, but I've written a couple of books. So, I guess I'm knocking on the door trying to be like the three previous persons.
But you were featured in Forbes.
And I was featured in Forbes, second best thing. See?
There was an article there a few weeks ago. Maybe Dr. Heiser can put it in the chat.
Yeah. I'm knocking on the door, as I said. What else? I'm a motivational keynote speaker, so I get to travel around the world a little bit. Not so much these days. I'm doing it virtually. A charity, the Keep On Pushing Foundation, that does work with support the education of disadvantaged kids back in my old neighborhood. And I'm just pleased to be here to hang out with these really high achievers. Maybe I learn a thing or two.
And we learn from you. And I think congratulations are in order because this is a big anniversary of when you guys competed at the Winter Olympics, isn't it?
Yes. I actually did not remember that. It didn't come to mind until I saw a post on Facebook. So, yeah, it would have been a week ago or so. We debuted at the Winter Olympics in a 4-man event, an event, believe it or not, we had never done prior to the Olympic Games. The Olympic Games was the first time we raced a 4-man. That week was the first time we ever had a 4-man training. So it just, the story gets, more and more bizarre as you delve into it. But it was so much fun.
But that's really the whole fear not trying more than you fear failing. I mean, you come from a tropical island, right? You don't really have ice.
Yeah, it's a small detail.
Just except in drinks, right? Not in not to go racing around on.
Yeah, you go if the mountain won't come to Mohammed, he must go to the mountain. Right. If the ice won't come to us, we must go to the ice. And did. That's what we did.
And you did. So if you ever saw the movie Cool Runnings, it was loosely based on Devon Harris and his teammates. And last but certainly not least, Dr. David Greenwald.
How is everyone tonight? Well, I must say that I have read Forbes. I've never contributed to Forbes, but it's good to do that. And I'm a gastroenterologist in New York at Mount Sinai. I'm the clinical director of gastroenterology and endoscopy at Mount Sinai Medical Center. And I am fortunate, very fortunate actually, to be the president of a large association of gastroenterologists in the United States, the American College of Gastroenterology. I know Ruth and her husband and her whole family. And there's nothing I wanted to be more when I was growing up than an astronaut or a bobsledder. So to be on the same show as Devon is just a dream come true.
Awesome. Now, the reason the topic for today is so aligned with Dr. Greenwald's visit with us, because he was on this show several weeks ago, and apparently he had this soothing and calming demeanor over everyone, because all of a sudden I got emails from people who said, thanks for having Dr. Greenwald on the show. I now am no longer afraid of a colonoscopy, and I made an appointment to get one. So, and we heard of people where they actually found things, and because they went early, they actually, good things will now happen for them, that early detection. So, it's really fantastic that we can talk about that. And it is Colorectal Health Month. Did I get that right?
Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month, but that's perfect.
That's close.
That would be March. Yep.
Yep. So I am excited because I hope you can give us some details as we start talking about that. But I want to put a pin in that right now so we can warm people up before we start talking about the colon. Let's go back to the ice. Devon.
Well, look, David, talk about ice. David is obviously the coolest one of all of us. Not only does he know you, he knows your entire family and is a gastroenterologist.
Look, I know it's International Women's Day, but this is like laying it on a bit thick.
So I'm just going to stick to the ice, man.
So Tell me, Devon, I think we need to go back to your story a little bit. You were a captain in the military in Jamaica. You were an athlete, right? You were a distance runner, though, not a sprinter. And bobsledders apparently need sprinters. But why don't you tell us, not too long, but why don't you tell us a little bit about that story, how you went from being the captain in the military to the Olympics?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think I was a sprinter in disguise. When I was young, I was just impatient to win. And if you're from Jamaica, you're not sprinting really fast, you ain't winning. So I started running distance and I started winning and I loved it. So, you fast forward, I'm in the Army. I'm 21 years old, actually, still a lieutenant. And dreaming of competing in the Olympics in Seoul. So I'm running, I'm trying to get fit. And two Americans who lived in Jamaica came up with the idea to start a bobsled team because we have all these sprinters. The guys on the summer team, I guess, I don't know, they were smart enough not to try it because it is a crazy idea. They weren't interested. So they came to the Army looking for athletes. My colonel suggested that I try it out for the team. And then I just saw it as, man, here's my shot to go to the Olympic Games. And I don't think he expected me to make the team, but I'm just not wired that way. I'm not wired to go to the team trials. I was at the team trials. It was fun. So I tried my darnest, got selected. This is September 87. Never seen a bobsled before. First time we saw one was up in Lake Placid, 5 hours from here. At the mid-September-ish, end of September. First time I went on a bobsled track was in October of 87. And, by February of 88, we're in the Olympic Games. And as I mentioned earlier, the second week of the Olympics, when they had the 4-man event, we decided that we would enter the 4-man event. Never done it before. We just decided, hey, let's go get a sled. We got an old rickety sled from the Canadians.
So you got to the Olympics without a sled?
Because we weren't entered in the race, in the event in the first place. So yes, we went to the Olympics without a sled. The first half of the week we trained with an old rickety sled, and the second half of the week we got a better sled from the Canadians, painted it in black.
Who painted it?
I mean, the whole thing is just crazy because there's obviously to compete in the Olympics, you need more than 1 week's training, or you should have more than 1 week's training. And then with bobsledding and the driving, there's so much feel that goes into being able to properly maneuver a sled that the driver needs more than a few days of training with that particular sled. We had none of that. And then to make matters worse, on the second day of the race, it's like maybe all the training that we had done in the years in Jamaica and then the intense focus that week, it just came together on that third run. We pushed the 7th fastest start time. And the poor driver now is seeing literally a brand new track because they had never gone so fast before. So it's going faster than it's ever gone before in a brand new sled. And it ended in disaster. We crashed at the end of corner 9, looked rather spectacularly, and looked as if we got killed. But no, our egos were bruised badly, though, I have to admit. No, we survived.
But you tried. I mean, you went without seeing the course. You didn't have a sled. You haven't practiced on the sled. You were supposed to do a 2-man, and all of a sudden you're in a 4-man. I mean, all these new things that happen. This is not how people go to the Olympics. People train for years for this. We
recruited a guy that week who had never been on a sled before. That Chris Stokes, who ended up being our brakeman, that was his first week in bobsledding. So I agree, though. The question you asked earlier, what's the worst that can happen? You fail. Oh, well,
yeah.
But in the process, you learned a lot of lessons. And so we did. We learned some lessons there. And it just made us more determined to come back and prove that we were better than this. So I think it's really important, as much as, trying something new is a scary proposition. What do you have to lose? Your ego might get bruised, but you would have grown and done something tremendous in the process. So,
and you got to compete in the Olympics.
That was pretty cool. And, and it really spurred me on to, obviously, I'm a 3-time Olympian, to go do it 2 more times.
2 more times, but I think you also inspired people because now Jamaica has a women's bobsledding team.
We've, it's really, there's a guy up in Canada who ended up being one of Canada's top brakemen, one of the best brakemen in the world, is a guy from rural Jamaica who came to know bobsledding because of a movie called Cool Runnings. Was on our team and ended up being one of the best bobsledders in the world. Of course, we have had a women's team. We have just spoke to a kid today from New Jersey, Anthony Watson, who competed in skeleton for Jamaica. The first time we're having a skeleton athlete at the Olympic Games. And yeah, we have met so many people in and outside of the sports who were inspired by our story. And I think you're right. The fact that we were willing to try inspired other people to go try as well.
I think it's truly inspiring. And to all the people listening, we have a little after party after the show, and Devon actually got to show us some of his medals and tell us the story behind the medals, which was really, really cool. So look, the worst that would happen was that you crash and you have a bruised ego, but you got to compete in the Olympics. And
if you're lucky enough, they may even make a movie about it. Go figure.
That's right. Anyone know which one Devon was in that movie?
So, I tell people I was a handsome one. They take one look at me and laugh. They're like, there's nothing handsome about you. So the characters in the movie are really different from real life characters. So the one I usually align myself closest with is Yul Brynner, the bald-headed one. People go, oh, so you're the mean one. And I agree. I think he was just a little bit frustrated with how his life was going. And we've all been there. But he was also a dreamer. He's a guy that wanted to go to Buckingham Palace to live. And that's how I see myself as well, as a dreamer.
Love it. So for those who are looking back at footage from the Olympics, Devon is the second one in the bobsled, number 2.
Yeah.
So that's how you know who he is.
Yeah, that was me understudying because I wanted to become a driver. So it's kind of a funny story. I would be so in the first 2 runs on the first day, I was looking over the driver's shoulder, see what was going on, and he was an army captain. I was a lieutenant, and at the end of the first day, I remember him pressing pause on the VCR angrily, and he goes, "What's that?" And that's me.
With your head sticking out.
Like, what are you doing? And he goes, "Take the goggles off." So I took the goggles off and he crashed. I'm like, "Thanks for the warning, buddy."
Well, you got to compete in the Olympics, Devon. All good.
All good.
Dave, we need your help here. What you do for a living is terrifying to some people. Right?
Almost as terrifying as a bobsled run, I have to admit.
Well, yeah, but before we go into that, I have to tell you that story was like the coolest story. I mean, I hear really cool stories all the time. That was like the coolest story I've heard in a long time. And Devon, I'm like really upset. So this is 1987, 88. You're talking about, I guess, 88, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I was 28, and you just said that you recruited somebody that week to be on the bobsled team. That sounds like something I could have done then. I could have been on the team.
Yeah.
My life would have been transformed in a different way. But what a great story. I mean, just so inspiring. I mean, when you think about, I love that whole idea of fear not trying more than fear of failing. And that's exactly what you're doing. And it applies in so many ways. I mean, it's just, I love that story. Yeah. As for what I do, it's scary to a lot of people. We talk a lot about doing things like colonoscopy, and it really does scare people. And I think the most important thing, in what I do is to help demystify that and make it so that it's not scary for people. We're in the business of preventing colorectal cancer. So most colorectal cancers, we talked about the other time I was on the show, and I love being on this show. Most of it comes from little polyps. Little polyps grow into big polyps, and big polyps grow into cancer. And if we can take those polyps out before they turn into cancer, we prevent the cancer.
Hey, Dave, can you explain what a polyp is? Can you explain what a polyp is?
Yeah, a polyp's a little growth inside the intestine. So imagine the lining of your intestine looks a lot like the lining of your cheek. It's kind of pink and moist. And if you imagine getting a bump on the inside of your cheek, that would be the essential equivalent of a polyp inside your colon. And that polyp can grow from small to bigger to even bigger. And at some point it can turn into cancer. And the great news here is that if we can remove the polyp before it turns into cancer, it never turns into cancer. And
Does that hurt?
So the polyp, when it's growing, doesn't hurt at all. No, it's asymptomatic. People don't even know they're growing in them, having them grow, and that's why we have to screen for them, because we want to take them out before they turn into a symptom. You might, if you had colon cancer, for example, develop bleeding from the rectum, or you might develop weight loss, and we want to get to that polyp and remove it before any of those symptoms occur, before any pain occurs. You don't want to wait for a symptom or a sign. It may be too late. But to go back to your original point, we try to make it so that this whole process is easy to understand and clear and not scary. So we take those polyps out doing colonoscopy. Comedians love to make jokes about it. My guess is Devon has a million colonoscopy jokes that he might tell us later. But when we do the colonoscopy in the United States, typically we do it with sedation. It doesn't hurt. Test itself lasts between 20 and 30 minutes typically. Everyone wakes up about 5 minutes after the test. The caregiver, the physician, gives them a report immediately about what they found, and they go home about 20 to 30 minutes later, feeling perfectly well. So, it's really an easy and not in and out, in many ways, in and out. I can make so many jokes about that if you want me to, but I won't.
Yeah. So I'm saying, so you're probably in the waiting room longer than the actual procedure.
Yeah, we don't let anyone in the waiting room anymore because of COVID, but when they were in the waiting room, yeah, we do. Yeah. And
it doesn't hurt.
It does not hurt. That's the big thing. I tell that to every patient I see when I'm explaining this. I say, let's talk about a colonoscopy now. And I talk about all their preconceived notions, but I always start with, this doesn't hurt. This is not going to hurt you at all. And it might save your life. And that's such a good trade-off, right? Not hurt, might save your life.
Not hurt. So it doesn't hurt, even if it's clean, or if you find a polyp, it still will not hurt.
Will not hurt. Will not hurt. It could save your life.
Yeah, I can attest to that. I had a colonoscopy maybe 5-6 years ago. And just as Dr. Greenwald said, I was in and out. Got home.
So what age? What age should you get
I was 50, so I'm actually due another one. I actually made a call to set an appointment today. Didn't know we'll be discussing this.
I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Dave, what age do you recommend getting it?
Yeah, good question, actually. So the American Cancer Society about 2 years ago changed their recommendation from 50 years, which is what had been the recommendation for many organizations or by many organizations, to 45. An organization in New York City called C5, the Citywide Colorectal Cancer Control Coalition, also has come out with recommendations starting at 45. And the American College of Gastroenterology, the organization that I said I was proud to be president of, published new guidelines this week, actually, on March 4th, which recommends screening to start at age 45 for average risk adults. So, you start at 45. If things are normal, you have another exam 10 years later. Remember, it doesn't hurt. And you continue on into up to age 75. And after that, we recommend that consideration of screening be individualized.
So why do you think it was decreased from 50 to 45?
Yeah, another great question. So most of the reason that it decreased from 50 to 45 was a recognition that in the United States, there's an increased rate of colorectal cancer in people who are younger than 50. And that's been a trend over the past 25 years. Now, let me be really clear about this. Colorectal cancer is still much more common in people who are older than 50, older than 60, older than 70, than in that younger age group. but it does seem to be increasing in that younger age group. It's not exactly clear why. People have postulated that maybe there are changes in diet in the United States that may be responsible for those changes. But there's definitely been an increase in younger people with colorectal cancer, such that if you look now as compared to 20 years ago, it appears that the 50-year-olds 20 years ago now look like the 45-year-olds in terms of colorectal cancer risk. So we're recommending starting at age 45.
Thank you. Dave, I'm sure you're going to save a few lives today by teaching us all about this. Now, I have to ask you, what's the best part of being president of the American College of Gastroenterology?
Oh, that's nice. The best part of being the president of the American College of Gastroenterology is working with my colleagues. It's working with the other gastroenterologists around the country to help promote good gastrointestinal health. We do all sorts of things. We have patient outreach. We have physician and caregiver outreach programs. We do advocacy. So, for example, even in the world of colorectal cancer screening, we've now helped push forward legislation that got passed at the end of the last term in the COVID relief bill, actually, that removed a barrier to colorectal cancer screening where people used to get a bill, believe it or not, if a polyp was found, despite the fact that the colonoscopy that was done initially was supposed to have no cost. That was a loophole that Congress never meant to have in the original legislation that made colorectal cancer screening a benefit for everyone. Well, that loophole persisted for 10 years. And the American College of Gastroenterology, along with our sister GI organizations, really led the way to changing that rule. And it just came about a couple of months ago. Wow.
Thank you. Dave, what did you fear not trying more than you feared failing?
You know, a lot of things, but, you know, I think the challenge of being a doctor actually is probably the thing that I wanted to make sure that I tried. I wasn't so concerned that I would fail, but I knew that if I didn't try, you know, I would never succeed. And I thought I had a lot to offer. So, and I think that goes for a lot of people and a lot of careers and a lot of choices. You know, if you don't try, you never get there.
And what's the worst that'll happen?
Wayne Gretzky said that you miss 100% of the shots that you never take. And this is right. Wayne Gretzky's father, who died yesterday, I believe. But, you know, it's the same concept. If you don't take your shot, you never make your shot. Devon said it before, right? You know, got to take your shot. Here's my shot. I'm going to do it. Mm-hmm.
That's right. I think Dave and Devon are best buds now.
Can you
believe, Dave, can you believe you're on a show with the Jamaican bobsledder? I mean, an Olympic athlete. So we're getting a lot of these people. Now, if there's anybody who fears not trying more than she fears failing, and I think deserves a crown for this because the word no is simply not in her vocabulary, it's Janice Lentz. Janice, I know you have a story for this. You can literally pick one of your thousands. Yeah, I mean,
for me, it's an everyday thing, and it sounds crazy, but you know, and not to disrespect all the doctors on this show, but when a doctor tells you as soon as your daughter's diagnosed with a hearing loss, don't worry, there are special schools for her. You know, I hadn't even wrapped the head around the diagnosis, and suddenly I was thrust into this world I didn't want to be in. And so for me, the fear of trying to change the world for people with hearing loss was so much easier than for me to suddenly be part of what I describe as like the Frosty the Snowman's parade for misfit toys, which people wanted to place me at. But I literally every single day end up calling and reaching out to people that other people won't. And just yesterday, there was a new WHO report on assistive devices that omitted half the devices people with hearing loss use. And it was based on the impoverished countries that, of course, they couldn't afford it. And I don't know who decided which countries are so impoverished. and how this was decided, but it was preposterous. So I wrote a letter to the Secretary General of the UN because to me, this document was appalling. And I think it needs to, right. And it needs to be, rescinded. And I haven't heard from him yet, but I know I will. And
because you have experience reaching out to the Secretary General of the UN. You've gone through several already.
Yeah, well, I just Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, but that's actually a really funny story because I realized I never focused, but it was right after I met Meghan Markle at the He for She conference at the UN, and then I spoke to him and was discussing the lack of access, and so his way of dealing with the lack of access at the UN was to have me filmed at a segment on the UN's website. So it usually works out. It may not be exactly what I want fixed, but some aspect it usually gets remedied. But it is surprising to me. I mean, I emailed the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, about trying to get access information from the Canadian ferries. And I couldn't get the information. And suddenly the information arrived in my inbox. So it was just an email to him. And you'd be really surprised how many people's emails are online. And as a result, I ended up having 2 different conversations with assistants to 2 different ministers. And now I've been asked to help write the Canadian Disabilities Rights Act. I'll see if that happens, but one minister's office asked me to and I'm happy to do that. And I find regularly, if I file a complaint, but I add a turnkey, like a solution, so that it's not a rant, but it's a thoughtful complaint with, this is the problem, this is why I think it's a problem, but here's the solution to solve the problem. I'm more likely to solve the problem than if I just whine.
Right. Because who wants to deal with whiners? But if you're offering a solution, then great. We haven't tried that. Do you have any ideas how to implement it? And now you become part of that team and part of that solution. But, Janice, what I am always so admire about you is that your daughter's an adult now. And you are still fighting this fight every single day. When we talk, you tell me about some new place that you're overthrowing because you're trying to get this hearing access. And it's not even, it's not that you're only thinking of one line of thinking. You are thinking literally in 360 because it's baseball stadiums and it's museums and it's taxi cabs and it's national parks and it's drugstores and it's, all of these places that it's now gone way beyond your daughter. Your daughter's not visiting these places. Now it's about the mission. This became part of who you are.
I just love it. Although the problem is I have to fix the whole world because these places take so long to add the access that who knows where she's going to go next. Because like the taxi project in New York City that at Induction Loops took 9 years. I'm working on the Smithsonian for 15 years. So you have to plan in advance. And it's a misnomer to think that you should call them and you call the place you want to go on Saturday and you call them on a Tuesday and you say, I'm coming on Saturday, and they will have the access in place. It will take sometimes years. So I have to work on every place because I want my daughter to be able to go every place. But yes, this has become way beyond just my daughter. This is to me to remedy access. I mean, just today I was on with a legislative director for, there's only 2 of them, for a Congress member, one of 2 Congress members who have a cochlear implant, which is a first. And I was appalled to find out that they can't get captioning in Congress. They can't get captioning, and other Congress members won't wear clear face masks to see the lips since everyone has to wear a mask. That's appalling to me and unacceptable. And if a Congress member can't get the access they need, that's unbelievable. So I sent an email to to Speaker Pelosi. That's unacceptable. And that is a bad image for the entire country. And I will now work on that. And no, the Congress members should not need me working on that. But to me, it's a bigger picture. If the Congress members see the access every day when they're in the House, they will think about that same access within their state. So there's a ripple or domino effect. And I'm really good at fixing this. And so I work globally. I mean, I had a call this morning with Vienna. Last week was Norway. I'm working all over the world on projects. I have another call in Argentina. I mean, I am trying to fix an entire world.
I'm just nice you still take my calls. Janice is the person I call on my commute home. We give ourselves sanity checks. So I'm glad that you take my call, and I am just so impressed that you don't give up, and you're not. I mean, clearly you're not afraid of failing. If the taxi project took 9 years and Smithsonian is 15, I think most people would have given up by now. Clearly, you haven't. You just keep fighting the fight, because what's the worst that would happen?
I start with a no. I once had a tour guide who told me this. I start with a no, and it can only turn into a yes. But I described this the way to not have like that fear of no. And I described this on a podcast today. I have a basket full of projects, kind of like the way the gross national product, you have the basket of products. I have the basket full of projects. And it's not only within the United States, working in multiple states, but it's in multiple countries. So, for example, we went through a domestic crisis where we couldn't get anything passed in this country. I started working more internationally. And now I can go back to working domestically. Or if we have a governor and a mayor where it's difficult to get anything done, I'll work in other states. So by swapping all these, and also because the projects do take a really long time, if I can inch each project forward just a tad, by having if I described it on the podcast, it's kind of like in the beginning when I started, I would be sitting and waiting for them to call me, and I'd call them like 2 days later. Okay, so did you finish? And of course they weren't finished. So if you have a lot of projects you're working on at the same time, you're moving each one forward just maybe an inch a day. And in the end, you could end up having all your projects hit at about the same time. And there was 1 year where it seemed like one after another, every project was hitting. And it was like, it looked like I was a miracle worker, even though I'd been working on these projects for years.
We won't tell. You don't need to tell everyone that it took such a long time.
It took a long time, and it just coincidentally all happened at once. But I think by having so many projects, that if you lose one, okay, so you lose that one because you have a success in another one. And so
you're strategizing where you always have things in the hopper. You're always working on things. That's the word. You always have things in the hopper. I was
looking for the word. That's it. I always have things in the hopper.
Late. And if one doesn't work out, it's not that it won't work out forever. It's just not working out now because you don't have the right people in place. But really, it's just on hold. It's on the back burner, right? It's not gone forever. So thank you, Janice. Bruce, you are another unicorn. Everyone here is a unicorn because you are a physician who also has an MBA, who's also a journalist, who also does a lot of computer modeling. And you're also a really nice guy who loves to eat avocado toast and apparently has this thing about boy bands. So the music. So, I mean, you're different. You're different. And that's so perfectly you. So you tried all these things. And I know it really probably pissed off a lot of people in your career where, you tell people that when you're in medical school that maybe I'm not going to see patients. I want to get an MBA. Oh, I also want to write. I'm sure it confused people. And you've never done some of these things before. So what made you try?
Well, I should first add that I regularly, whenever I'm, approach a tough challenge or a question, I always ask myself, what would Janice do?
We all should ask that, right?
There should be some kind of show where Janice is on the show, and it's like the opposite of Shark Tank, where basically people come to her with a challenge or a problem, and then she said, "Oh, just do that." like someone comes up and says, "Oh, how do I time travel?" And I'm sure Janice will come up with some solution.
WWJD. WWJD. Yes. What would Janice do?
Exactly. So I think that's a show that at some point needs to happen.
Maybe someone will pick it up. There'll be a future mentor project show.
So I guess I've heard. So I remember one time during my training, a faculty member came up to me and said, "You're different. People don't like different." So I've actually heard like variations of that, with that word, and sometimes expletives have been thrown in there as well. But different. But yeah, I found that when you're in a certain type of path, etc., there's the way to do things, and then sometimes you don't quite fit, and so you have to forge your own path. And I tell people, and I run into a lot of folks who are maybe at early stages in the career, and they say, well, I feel like I want to do certain things, but I feel like I have to stay within the system for a while, or I have to like take the path for a while, etc. And I like to say that you are who you are. So for instance, if you take a hot dog, for instance, and you like dump relish on it and you put cheese on it and you put all the stuff on it, it's still
God, Bruce. Bruce, how do you manage hot dog references? All right, gotta get Tiara in there now.
Yep. So like it'll always be a hot dog. So you are who you are. And so if there are things that you want to do, if you don't do it now, like at some point it's going to like resurface, or at some point you're going to you're going to feel like, why didn't I do that before? So I think it's you can't really deny who you are. So you basically, you go for it, because I found the things that I've regretted in the past are like almost always like not doing something. Like it's rarely, oh, you did that and maybe you shouldn't have done that, et cetera, because there's always learning. Like if you try something, you're like, oh, okay, that was probably not a good idea. But you still learn from it. But if you never try something and you never give it a shot, then you always wonder. You sit there and like, what could have happened?
Bruce, are you saying that if you're not moving forward, you're actually moving backwards?
Yeah, I think that's a good way of saying it. So, yep.
Wow. Okay. So you have no choice then.
I think so, because I mean, you are who you are, and I think when you actually, try different things, you never know what might come out of it. And you say, Ruth, what's the worst that could happen? And I think if you take that attitude, you'll thank your soul, because that's the one thing. Like if you want to do something, you want to try to do something, and you don't do it, and you like put it on the side and you kind of suppress it. I think sometimes what suffers is your soul. You sit there and say, oh, and that's kind of hard to take care of later, because you just feel like there's something's off. Like I didn't quite do what I was supposed to do.
And you kept changing all these things that you're doing. You kept adding to it.
Yeah, right? I think it was more, it's interesting because I did confuse a number of people when I was trying different things, and they look at me like I had 3 or 4 heads. And, but, I followed I followed curiosity, and I was interested in trying different things. So I think I saw a theme in there, even though it may not have been obvious to other folks. So I think what happens is if you follow, we always talk about follow your heart, and follow your instinct and things like that. I mean, to a degree. I mean, you can't just like say, okay, I want avocado toast right now. You can, you have to do it within reason. But when you do that, like things actually start connecting, and you start seeing connections where you didn't see connections.
That's powerful. Thanks, Bruce. Thank you. Allison, I have a question for you. You still there?
I am, but I have just been so enjoying listening tonight and just really getting to hear more about everyone's stories than in some ways I've gotten to hear before. And like, as a pediatrician, Janice fighting for more access in places I didn't know, just, you know, that part where the Grinch's heart grows 3 sizes. I'm just like, oh, Janice. And I just realized how much more Bruce and I have in common than I realized, because I was another following curiosity, interested in so many things, and none of my preceptors or mentors ever quite knew what to do with me because I never fit the direction they thought I should take, you know? But what's your question, Ruth?
So I want you to put your pediatrician hat on.
Yeah.
So kids try things a lot.
Yes.
Right? They don't know right from wrong. They just keep trying. At what point do you think we start fearing to try?
Yeah. You know, it's funny that you bring that up because it's been something I've been thinking about a lot. You know, I've been thinking about the roots of what makes some people innovators. And I believe that you can see a lot of that. Someday I will finally write the article on this. When I joined Forbes, it's because I told them I was going to write an article about this. And it's a year later and I still haven't because I'm still working on the deeper thinking. But, you know, those behaviors that we see in real innovators and the people that push the envelope are all things that we all did as children. And some of us keep doing it and most of us don't. And that's really interesting to me. And I think I believe that if we can go back and reopen some of those behaviors we had as kids, we all have them. It's there. The template's there. We just need to reconnect with that we could see a lot more innovative thinking.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm curious because, you know, I keep saying, Allison, you know, with kids, we buy them every uniform there is because here they're trying baseball and here they're trying basketball and here they're trying gymboree or gymnastics or whatever it's called these days. And here they're trying figure skating and here they're trying karate. And literally you have a closet full of uniforms because they've tried all these things because you want to see what sticks. Yep. So what causes them to stop trying these different things? Is it?
I think there's a couple things. Yeah. I think that the giving up on trying different things is happening younger and younger. I think a lot of that has to do with a culture that believes that early specialization is the path to future success. Pediatricians have been worried about this for a very long time. You know, and it's bad for both body and mind, right? We see kids with stress fractures at age 8 in their competitive gymnastics or their club soccer team because they're playing and practicing at a level that not even professional athletes used to play at in the 80s, right? Yeah. So we're pushing young bodies and we're seeing mental burnout in kids, you know, by late elementary school, early middle school because of these trends. I have to reference David Epstein's book, Range, here, because while child developments have been concerned about these kinds of trends for a long time, Range really did an excellent job of tracing people's careers and showing how late specializers, people who try a lot of things, who don't major in business, they major in literature, right? And then they go into business and they try different things and they find their thing later, actually end up to be, in the end, more successful and more innovative. So I think it comes back in my mind with kids to the should storm. You should do this. You should do that. You shouldn't do that other thing. And right now we believe that you should find your passion and build incredible skill level as young as possible in order to have a good and happy life. And that is dead wrong when it comes to what we know of child development.
So what are you suggesting? What should we do with our kids?
Relax. Relax. It's okay. You know, you don't have to get them a tutor to get them to accelerate a year in math. Let them learn the year of math that they're ready for, you know, and like turn off, you know, limit their screen time. So they have to have time to stare at the wall and realize that they're bored, because that's when interesting thoughts come up. Right. And if they enjoy sports, that's great, but don't let them get sucked into the competitive team that sucks up 20 hours a week of their time and every family weekend and no family vacations because you're traveling for the competitions. And the robotics club that takes up 6 hours every Sunday for like 6 years. Like, you know, and I'm not saying robotics club isn't fun if that's your kid's one thing. I'm just saying that there's this pressure cooker on childhood now that is taking away the very thing that we know makes children both more successful and happier in the long term. Because what builds resilience and mental well-being is that experimenting and trying stuff out and messing around with other kids outside instead of always being in a structured activity.
I love it. Look, I think every kid should also have a maker space, right? Try it out.
My whole house is a maker space. My kids they take over everything.
I know. But I think it's great, right? Because they can try all these new things. And again, what's the worst that'll happen? Maybe they'll blow up your house. I don't know. But what's the worst that'll happen? Right? Maybe there's some parents who...
I think that's a really good question though, Ruth, because I think that's what parents are really afraid of. I think that's what people feel stuck by, right? You know, you should make sure that your kid gets into the best academics and the best whatever level of achievement, or they will fall behind and their life will be ruined and it will be all your fault. That's the should storm of parenting. It's terrifying. And honestly, the only way I know to help people out of it, besides hopefully getting some recognition to the culture, is a social bond with either a group of like-minded parents where you can pull against the culture, or in my case, I coach my families, right? I spend a lot of my visits, we may come in about a runny nose, but we end up in a coaching session, right? I used to think that this was one where like it was an impossible task, right? To actually see change in people's lives and family cultures. Like, I mean, what kind of, really, you know, I have 15 minutes with people here and there, like I'm not going to make a difference, but I was terrified of not trying. And I am humbled, and I'm probably going to tear up by, over the years, how many families those discussions really do seem to be helping parents relax a little and let the kids be kids and trust themselves a little bit. And it's amazing.
That's incredible. That's incredible. And really, I got chills when you said that. Thank you, Allison. Devon, I have to ask you, you've got a lot of kids.
I do. Indeed. Yeah. 5 amazing kids.
5. Are you pressuring any of them to be Olympic athletes?
No, they don't seem, I can't even get them to, when they're doing sports, just to take it seriously. I don't know what's wrong with them. They're really talented. And, you know, I am of the mind, I'm not trying to get them to go to the Olympics. I have understood that, you know, I can't create little mini-me's and that they have to find their path. But I believe, though, that if you're doing a sport, you should do it well. And you should work to do it really hard. And they don't seem to be of that mindset at all.
They haven't figured out what they're truly passionate about. I mean, we talk about this all the time, that the high achievers have found out what they're passionate about. And then they have this insane work ethic that this is really where they put their focus. And when you couple that with the fear of not trying, then it becomes this mix that is really unstoppable, because these people are really going to try because they want to succeed, and they're not afraid to learn from the mistakes that happen along the way. And they're going to talk to everyone around them who can actually help them out and get this information. Another time we'll talk about the different ways high achievers learn, because they don't all sit with a book and read for 8 hours a day, even though that's what you hear. There are many, many, many different ways that you can learn, and reading is just one of them. It's my favorite, but it's not for everyone, and it's not the only way to learn. Guys, we are at the top of the hour. We need to close it up, and really we need to hear where people can hear more about you, how they can reach out to you if you are willing, because I mean, there's everyone, we have a chat going on here on the side, and everyone's saying, I want to be like Janice. I want to be like Dawson. I want to be like everyone, everyone wants to be like everyone else. Because these are just incredible people who have achieved incredible things and are always looking to pay it forward by teaching other people about their path, because maybe it'll help somebody else. And of course, we had Dr. Dave Greenwald here to really teach us how to stay in good health so that we can meet our goals and come up with the plans to meet those goals. So everyone, where can people find out more about you? Dr. Bruce Wiley.
So I'm honored to hear similarities with Allison. I'm honored by that. I also have similarities with David as well. He talks about colons, and I use colons and semicolons in my writing. So you can reach me.
Were you always this funny, Bruce? I need to know.
You can reach me brucewiley.com. And you can also Google search Bruce Wiley. You have to include the Y, otherwise you get all this martial arts stuff. And also at Bruce_Y_Lee is my Twitter handle. And if you want to look at my Forbes stuff, Bruce Wiley Forbes.
Love it. Now, as you could see, Bruce is a very funny guy, and somehow he gets hot dogs into almost every single Forbes article. How a science writer introduces hot dogs in every article, I will never understand. But I challenged him one time to put tiara in instead. And he not only put in tiara, but he put hot dog and tiara in the article. And I think it was within 24 hours of the challenge. He wrote to me, challenge accepted. So he won. Good job. I can't get hot dogs or tiaras. I write about leadership. I can't get either one.
I managed to mix.
Isn't there a lead dog who's just hot?
Bruce, what were you saying?
I managed to mix tiaras and boy bands as well when I mentioned the NSYNC classic "Tearing Up My Heart."
Oh yeah,
this is going a little too far. Okay.
Janice, where can people find more about you and your revolution?
So I can be found at my advocacy work, janicelentz.com, and my consulting work, hearingaccess.com.
Thank you. Dr. Allison Escalante.
Yeah, the easiest way to find me is on my website, because I have everything assiduously linked. Twitter, all my socials, my Forbes articles. You can find links to Psychology Today. And if you're bored, you can watch my TEDx talk. So it's AllisonEscalante.com, spelled correctly. That's Allison with one L, or shouldStorm.com.
Love it. Thank you. Our favorite Jamaican bobsledder, Devon Harris.
The one and only. Always great to be able to hang with you guys. You guys are amazing, man. Bruce, I can't keep up with you, dude. But it's been fun.
No one can.
I think I have the easiest one, devonharris.com. That's like, I try to keep it simple. On IG, Instagram, and Twitter, it's at keeponpushing88. My thing is to keep on pushing. 1988, the year I went to the Olympic Games. youtube.com/keeponpushing always. That's where you get my podcast with some amazing guests, to include our illustrious leader here, Dr. Ruth Gotian. So come check us out.
That was fun. Thank you. And, well, my second favorite gastroenterologist, but everyone else's first. Because Dave trained my husband. So I have my loyalty. Dr. Dave Greenwald.
Ruth's husband is a gastroenterologist, so I'll forgive you for that one, Ruth. It's okay. I learned so much from all of you. I learned that I wish my family's pediatrician had been Allison. I learned you have to always be nice to Janice. Bruce, when I dictate the word colon into my phone in like a text message, it types out the colon that you use when you're writing your Forbes article. So we are connected. And you all now know that I really wish I had just been Devon or on Devon's team or somehow connected to Devon. So I brought a T-shirt, guys. Okay, a blue T-shirt that says, you can prevent colorectal cancer and don't let COVID-19 stop you. Okay? So my message there is, make sure that you do it. Get screened. It can save your life. If you're interested in the American College of Gastroenterology information, go to gi.org/colon cancer and you'll get all of it. You can find me at david.greenwald@mountsinai.org or Twitter @DAGreenwald, or just call me. I'm happy to talk to you anytime.
Thank you. And, we're all trying to convince Devon to take us all bobsledding, but some of us are afraid to go down all these turns. So, maybe just a straightaway. I don't know. We'll see.
I'm not sure how you do that.
You're Devon Harris. You'll figure it out.
Just a straightaway, huh?
But
we're going to have to call Janice to solve that one.
Yeah. My name is Dr. Ruth Gotian. I study extreme high achievers. You can hear all about it, read all about it in both Forbes and Psychology Today. Tomorrow, my Forbes articles usually come out on Tuesday. It's a great one. It's about one guy who is giving away all of his intellectual property for free. He's the #1 leadership coach. So that's coming out tomorrow. My website is ruthgotian.com. Social media is just my name. And if you go on there today, you will see a video for International Women's Day where I get to talk about my favorite topics of mentorship and leadership and extreme high achievers and how they got there. That was a really, really fun interview with Dory Clark for Thinkers 50. So go check that out. We will see you guys all next week where we have another great guest. And this was based on an introduction from Janice and her crusade. She introduced me, as everyone knows by now, I am writing a book on extreme high achievers, and I've been interviewing all these great people. And through Janice, I actually met Maxine Clark, who is the founder and CEO of Build-A-Bear Workshop. So she is going to join us next week, and we will have a great chat. So really exciting. Join us next week. Thank you very much to Dr. Debbie Heiser, the CEO of the Mentor Project, who is making us all look good behind the scenes. Thank you so much to the Mentor Project for hosting us. I'm Dr. Ruth Gotian, and this is Optimizing Your Success. Bye.
Thank you to all of our listeners and sponsors who've made this podcast possible. You can find out more about Dr. Ruth Gotian to optimize your success, live events held every Monday at 8 p.m. EST by going to our Facebook page at The Mentor Project. I am Jack Scott, the Chief Operations Officer here at The Mentor Project and the host of Meet Your Mentor, which posts every Wednesday. If you're interested in working with The Mentor Project, please reach out to us by going through our website at mentorproject.org. We look forward to seeing you back here next week to learn more about how you can optimize your success.